Well, we're just about to start a pretty big project here at home. We're going to be redoing the tile in the bathrooms in our house. We have 2.5 baths, and we're going to be doing the floor in 2 of them, and we're going to be doing the tile around the shower and the bathtub. The first thing I did was to measure all the bathrooms we're going to be doing, measure the square footage, and draw it out on Google SketchUp. After we had all of our dimensions, we had to buy the material, and we got lucky with the tile. We actually went to a contractor's auction. It was run here in Michigan at the Gibraltar Trade Center by a company called Peak Auctions, and we were able to pick up the tile we needed for 80% less than what it would have cost in the store. Here's an example of the tile we're going to be using on the walls for the shower. We got it actually for $1 a square foot, and in the store it goes for about $6 a square foot, so we saved a ton there. And then we also picked up these glass accent tiles, and we're going to be running that a line around the shower at about eye level. Also at the auction we got a toilet, and we're going to be replacing the toilet on the first floor as well. But the rest of the stuff we decided we're going to buy at Home Depot, and before you go out and buy it at full price, first I went to the post office, and if you ask for a coupon packet or a booklet, they have them behind the counter. They'll give it to you, and inside there's a 10% off Lowe's coupon, and Home Depot will price match Lowe's on those coupons. Now it has to be an official coupon. It can't be something you printed off online. But as for the materials, I made up an Excel spreadsheet, and I don't know if you need this, but I'll put it in the description at the bottom. So this is going to be our first time doing it. I'm sure we'll make a lot of mistakes, but we're going to be learning as we're going. Hopefully by the third bathroom we do, we'll be experts. But we're going to start with the easiest one, and that's the tile floor and the toilet on the first floor bathroom. Well, we're ready to start tearing stuff out, and here's the bathroom we're going to be working on. It's the half bathroom on the first floor, and as you can see it's pretty small. It's only 5 by 5, 25 square feet. The first thing we're going to do is take off this door, take it off the hinges, get it out of the way. We don't need it. And then we'll take off the toilet and then start removing the tile. Well, I got the first part done, and that is taking the toilet off. The first bolt was no problem. I was able to unscrew that. This one was rusted on, and I had to cut it with a hacksaw. But that's what it looks like right now. And this is all the wax rings, so I'm going to scrape that off and then start taking up the tile. And you can see there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's water damage or what there, but it looks dry behind it. It just was popped up. So we might have to replace some boards, but we'll see when we get the tile in. Well, it's day 2, and the demo didn't take as long as I thought. I was able to remove the tile, the baseboard tile, and the toilet in just a couple of hours, maybe an hour and a half. But now you can see that we have some problems with the wood floor underneath, and it's a little rotted and it's a little spongy. So we're gonna cut this out. I'm gonna cut along here, go down to the studs, and put a new piece of floorboard in there. And hopefully that doesn't take too long, and then we'll be set to put in the tile. So as you can see, this is the first layer of board, and this was bad all through here, but this bottom layer, this is good, and this was solid, and I did some test holes drilling through it. So what I did is I took my saw and I set it down to 3/8 of an inch, and I cut where I knew the wood was good. I cut all along here. So this is good and this is good. I got rid of all the bad stuff. So now all I have to do is measure and cut out some OSB that'll fit in there, nail it into the studs, and that'll be ready to put the thin set on top of that and then put in the tile. Alright, so I measured out the board that I have to cut out, and I drew it all up, and I went downstairs, and luckily I had some 3/8 inch OSB, and here's what I cut out. And I had to do a little bit of trimming afterwards. It didn't fit perfectly, but it fits now, and I'm going to put it in with some liquid nails and then screw it into the joist. Alright, so I removed the old boards and I cut and installed the new board in the bathroom, but it's not perfectly level. The new board is slightly low and there's gaps around the edges, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some mortar and I'm going to fill it in and smooth everything out before we set the tile. I'm going to use the mortar I got from Home Depot. It's just the gray. It's $5.97. I talked to my friend. He said you don't need the thin set admixture. He said just mix it with water and it should be fine. So I have 2 buckets, one with water and one I'm going to mix it in. And I don't need a lot. And like it is with all these projects, it seems like everyone always says make it the consistency of peanut butter, and I've heard that for mixing almost everything on construction sites. So just like concrete, you want to mix it the consistency of peanut butter so it's not too runny and not too thick. Alright, well, it's the next day and the thin set leveling course that we put down on this patch is hardened and that's all ready to go. And now we're starting to measure and cut the tiles, and I started with this corner because you can see from the Google SketchUp that I did, that's this corner here. We're going to use a full piece. And you can see that I didn't put it right up to the edge because we do have this baseboard that we're going to use to hide it, so that'll be enough to cover the edge. And when you're measuring it out, you got to remember to use, we're going to be using 1/4 inch spacers,
So you got to remember that they're not going to be right up next to each other. So the first piece fits in fine, and the next piece that we're on is right here, and you're going to see that I'm going to have to cut it out. So I measured, I did have to cut part of the door jamb out, and I measured, and this is the piece we're going to remove. So we're going to take it down, cut it on the tile saw. And side note is, if you have one of these little suction cups, it's a lot easier to move the pieces around with than lifting up from the corners, because these are big tiles. Alright, I just finished dry fitting all the pieces, and it was a little tricky. The hard part is getting the right gap spacing on all the pieces. I wanted to cut them too tight and too close to the wall, and the trick is really leaving yourself enough room. And here's what it looks like right now. This is what I'm talking about right here. This kind of spacing here and all along here. You can see it doesn't exactly line up right now. I'll get it exact when I set it in a mortar. Here's the baseboard to see, but you can tell I think I'm a little too close to the wall here. I'm not giving myself enough leeway. So I'm going to scrape a little bit of the drywall off, just about 1/8 of an inch, to give me enough room, and it'll still be covered up by the baseboard when we set that in. But I didn't do too nice of a job around the toilet, but you're never going to see it. It's going to all be covered up. So yeah, this took about an hour, maybe 2, to cut all these pieces, all the notches around. I had to go back down to the saw a few times to get all these little pieces right. But it's all set for the thin set, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch on the trowel and set them in place. Alright, well, it is the next day, and I got all the tile cut and ready to be installed. I'm going to go in the basement, mix up some thin set mortar, and spread it with the 1/4 inch trowel, and I'll start in the back and work my way out. Well, I just got done setting the tiles in the mortar, and it was quite a lot harder than I thought it would be for my first time. The first problem I had was these tiles are kind of brittle, and when I set the first one in, I was holding it at the corner and it cracked, so I had to cut another one. The second problem I had was with the level. The floor was a little bit out of level at first, and I thought it wouldn't be a problem until I tried to match up the corners. I had to pull some of the tiles out, set some more thin set down, and try to re-level it, get it all flush, and really push on some corners. Here's the problem I had was right here. I had to add some here, I had to add some here, I had to add some there, so I had to pull all these tiles out and redo them. I think the next time I'm going to take a lot more care in trying to get the floor level. The first time I might set a thin coat of thin set down to begin with and make sure that's all level. I just have to let it dry for a day, then I'll grout it, let that sit for 72 hours, and then I can install the toilet. Okay, so we've put the tile down yesterday, that was 24 hours ago. We've let it set, and now we're ready to mix the grout and apply it to the joints. We have sanded grout that is colored specifically for the tile. They suggest the color of the grout and caulk we bought. Now they say you don't want to mix this, you don't need a lot of water when you mix this, but you do want it a little bit runnier. Not runny, but runnier than the thin set mortar. So I'm only doing, like I said, 25 square feet, so I'm going to mix a small batch. If I have to come down and mix more, I'll do that. But I'm just going to add it with a little bit of water. I think it's 2 to 1 you want to mix grout to water. Okay, so I have my first batch mixed up, and I'll try to show you the consistency of it. I can kind of let it roll out here. Now I don't want it, I think I might add a tiny bit more water from what I've seen previously, but it's not soupy, but it's not like peanut butter. It's a little bit more runny than peanut butter. So take it upstairs and grout the joints. And now the key to grouting the joints is you want to get it from every different angle. You use your float, you want to go along the joint, across the joint, diagonal to the joint, every direction. You want to pack that joint in with grout and then scrape it flush. And you let it set for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back with the sponges when the grout on the tile is hardened, but the grout in the joint's still a little wet, and we'll wipe everything up. Alright, so I put all the grout in. It didn't take much, you know, just a couple inches up from the bottom of the bucket. That's probably because it's only 25 square feet, and I'm using such large tiles that there's not a lot of grooves that it actually has to get into. But let me show you what it looks like now with the grooves. It's probably been 15 minutes, so I'm just about ready to take all the sponges. I have 3 sponges and a bucket of water. So I'm just about ready to wipe everything off. Okay, so I finished with the grout, and I let it sit for 3 days, and that's when you're ready to do the sealing. And for this I use this surface guard sealer. It's a liquid, it's clear. I put it in a pan. Before I put it on though, I noticed there was some grit on the tile, kind of dusty grit. I wiped that off, let that dry. And then it only took a small amount, and I used the sponge, same sponge that I was doing with the grout. I wiped it on, I waited 5 minutes. I wiped it off with a rag. A lot of it was absorbed. And then I put a second coat on. Also in the package it came with this cleaner and resealer. I did not use that. I just used the one in the green container. So I let the sealer dry for a few hours, and I'm going to start doing the trim around the edges. And I'm using this trim that I got at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it's actually it's not solid wood. It's like a composite plastic foam. It cuts really smoothly on the miter saw, and it's just a series of 45-degree angles working your way around the room and nailing it to the wall with the power nailer. Well, after thinking we were all done with the bathroom, we looked at it and we noticed that the sink countertop and the light in there needed to be updated. We figured if we're going to do the rest of it, we might as well do that too. So we're not buying a whole new sink. We were just going to go look for the countertop. So we went to Home Depot and we actually got lucky. We found this marble countertop on clearance. So I'm going to put that in now. And the first thing I'm going to do to take out the old sink is shut off the hot and cold water, disconnect those pipes, then disconnect the drain at the bottom, and then use the utility knife, score all the way around where the original countertop meets the drywall, so I'm not pulling the paint and the drywall off when I remove the countertop. Well, I got the sink off. It took about 20 minutes. It wasn't super easy, but it was pretty much how I expected. I had to climb underneath, take the bolts off of here, unscrew this drain plug, disconnect everything. The problem is I have really old, cheap shut-off valves in my house, and no matter how, I don't want to over-tighten them and break it, but you got to tighten them with pliers just to turn the water off so it still drips. So I'm gonna hurry up, take the faucet off, try it out on the new sink. And one problem we're gonna have is this edging is a little bit higher on the old stuff than it is on the new sink. So I might have to clean up some of the drywall, maybe sand it and paint it before we put the new sink in. So for the first time tiling and putting in the toilet and countertop and everything, it wasn't too bad. It took a couple weeks. Not working every day. We had to wait for the faucet and everything, but I guess now we're ready to go upstairs and tackle the 2 showers in the bathroom floor up there. The video you just saw was actually recorded 3 years ago, and we're still really happy with how the bathrooms turned out. It makes our house look much more modern.
It gets rid of that old 70s kind of feel from when our house was built. It was a lot of work, especially with all the screw-ups along the way, but it's totally doable for an average homeowner that has some of the tools and some of the skills. When we started out, I had never done tile before, but by the third bathroom we knew what we were doing. It went a lot faster and a lot easier. So with this bathroom, this was my first time ever doing tile floor. And I'm happy with how I drew it up, and I'm happy with how I cut the tiles. Having a really nice tile saw made a huge difference. The areas I screwed up in is I used a 1/4 inch trowel, and the tiles we used were actually really big and they're stone, and I broke some putting them in. They're really weak and brittle and could easily crack. And we actually saw some cracked ones in the package. So it's not as big a deal if you're using smaller or different harder tiles, but we were kind of using weak tiles, and I used a 1/4 inch trowel, which was a mistake for 2 reasons. One, it was harder to get them even. You had less play vertically to line them up even. The 1/4 inch didn't give you as much play. If I use the 1/2 inch trowel like I did on the other 2 bathrooms, it gives you much more room to find that balance and flush between the 2 tiles. And the second reason 1/4 inch isn't the right choice for those tiles is because I don't think I got an even bed of mortar underneath it, and I got a crack in one of the tiles where it might have hit a high spot or it might have hit a pressure point. It wasn't a huge crack and it's not very noticeable, but I didn't get it in the other bathrooms where I used the thicker trowel. The other obvious screw up I had was when we got a great deal on a clearance countertop that fit great, and then we realized we couldn't reuse our faucet. It had different hole patterns. The faucet we had the 3 holes close, and the new countertop were spread apart. So we saved money with the new counter, and we ended up getting a new faucet. So we kind of broke even. But we didn't even realize it until we got home and set it on there and said, oh, we need a new faucet. And one thing I didn't show was how to install the toilet in this video. If you want to check that out, I have 2 other videos I did from the other 2 bathrooms, and I show setting the wax ring, and I actually used 2 wax rings so I could get a nice squish down seal on that pipe. So if you want to see how to install the toilet, you can check out those videos. And you'll notice that the toilet I used was actually a dual flush low flow toilet. I'm not really happy with it. When guests come over, they don't hold the button down and it clogs. We've had a lot of issues with it clogging. So that's just I thought I was doing the right thing by getting a low flow toilet, but it's actually been quite a bit of a hassle. So if you want to check out those other videos, you can see the links in the description or check out my playlist. So my advice to you is expect things to go wrong. If this is the first time you're doing this, you're not going to do it perfectly, and we didn't either. We screwed up on the tile floor and the shower and the toilet. But by the 3rd bathroom, I was doing those all myself, and it went much easier and much quicker. The next thing is expect it to take a lot more time than you originally think. We thought, oh yeah, it'll take a week or a weekend or something like that, and it took a lot more because you have to go to the store and buy stuff you forget, or you have to wait for things to dry, so it takes a lot more time than you originally think. And it also costs a little bit more money than you thought. Even though we had the spreadsheet filled out and we thought we had bought everything initially, you forget, oh, you need 1 more box of tile, or you break a tile, or you need more mortar, so it's going to cost a little more money than you thought. But just make sure you have a plan. Measure everything up, know what you want to do, get dimensions and quantities for everything, fill out the spreadsheet and get an idea of what you need and what it's going to cost, and watch some videos and talk to people who have actually done it and get their opinion on what they forgot and how they screwed up, or tips and little tricks you can do to save you time and do it right, hopefully the first time. So let me know. Hopefully this is helpful, and let me know what you think. Thanks.